You are unmuted. Sir told me to stay, and that he said that the state police would be coming to talk to me.
And so you stayed at the house at 34 Fairview, is that right?
Yes.
I believe that's when we saw Jen McCabe's husband show up and walked in and
go pick up the parents. She informed me that Jen was in the house. Jen is waiting to be interviewed by the police.
So where did you go from there?
I then proceeded to the front door.
I'll ask you, whereabouts were you at about 8:22 in the morning?
Home.
Had you shoveled out of your driveway at that time?
Not yet.
Had you cleaned off your car at that time?
No.
Only 8:22 in the morning or so. Where is it that you were at that point in time, if you know?
At 8:22, I would say I was still blowing the snow out of my driveway, clearing the path for my truck to leave the driveway.
And on Fairview, is that right?
Yes.
And when he came back, what is it that why had you asked him to come?
Well, as I was sitting there and I was waiting for the state police to come, I was slowly trying to piece together what had just happened in the last couple of hours. And he had told me, if there's anything that you remember, once, if you remember anything, please, give me a call.
And so there was something that you remembered, and what type of remarks are you referring to that you told Officer Lank when he came back?
I said that she told one of the EMTs that she hit him.
And where was it that you and Trooper Proctor first met up on that particular morning?
We met at the Canton Police Department.
And do you recall approximately what time it was that you arrived at the Canton Police Department?
It was approximately 9:15.
When you arrived at the Canton Police Station, you mentioned that you met Trooper Proctor there. Do you recall who arrived first?
Trooper Proctor was in the parking lot in his vehicle.
When was it that you arrived in relation to Sergeant Buchanan, if you know?
At Canton PD?
Yes.
I don't recall if Sergeant Buchanan arrived first or...
But suffice it to say, at some time you both arrived around 10 a.m., is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go with the Canton Police when you arrived there?
We spoke with the Sergeant Sean Good.
And what, if anything, did you learn from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good informed us that while he was on scene, he identified Kerry Roberts, Jennifer McCabe, Karen Reed. He also informed us that Jennifer McCabe was out early in the night at a Waterfall Bar in Canton with some...
Sergeant Good at the Canton Police Station.
The conversation with Sergeant Good was probably 25 to 30 minutes. He walked us through his...
Next question.
So honestly, you did, in fact, at 10:41 a.m. indicate to another professional involved in the investigation that the circumstance was being treated as a physical assault at that point, correct?
I communicated our suspicions to the medical examiner's office.
And that was at 10:41 or thereabouts in the morning, correct?
That's correct.
January 29th, 10:55 a.m., Trooper Proctor calls you for 1 minute and 17 seconds.
Correct.
And how long were you there that morning waiting for the state police?
I believe I left approximately 11:30.
The house on Fairview, about how long were you there that morning?
I'm going to say give her at least 4 hours
From the time that you got there?
from the time I got there.
At some point, you indicated that you left the house on Fairview, is that right?
Yes.
And with your husband, I presume?
Yes.
And where did the two of you go?
We went home.
And your children were still there without either you or your husband there, is that correct?
Yes.
And once you arrived back home...
On Jen and I's house, home.
As your children were still there, is that correct?
My children were all there, correct?
And about how long was it a time from when you arrived home with your husband to the time that the officers from the state police came by?
It was pretty quick.
Now, in addition to the officers from the state police, did anybody else come over to your house on that day, late morning, early afternoon?
Yes, my brother-in-law, Brian.
And why was it that later on that day that you were over your sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe?
Well, my sister-in-law Jen and her husband Matt were leaving my house. My sister-in-law was distraught. I wanted to be comforting to them and be there for them if they needed anything, and I drove to their house.
Brian.
And do you know why he came over that?
Yes, he came over. I had asked him. He's like a big brother to me, and I was all shaken up and nervous and overwhelmed, and so I wanted his support.
That's correct.
Your initial investigation during those obviously critical hours, the beginning hours, led you to believe that there was at least a good possibility. You indicated that you made a phone call, that it was a physical altercation that led to John O'Keefe's death, correct?
That's correct, yes.
What's to determine whether someone in the house at 34 Fairview may have been involved in that physical altercation that you suspected at the time?
As investigations develop, we followed the evidence and statements made. The steps I took was Trooper Proctor and I proceeded to an eyewitness who was also present at the scene when the victim was discovered and interviewed Ms. McCabe.
And prior to that, prior to interviewing Ms. McCabe, by the way, that was at Ms. McCabe's home, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Even though you believe that there may have been a physical altercation, you didn't ask anybody to come down to the station. Is that right? Any of the witnesses?
That's correct.
And you did not seek to actually go to the physical location of 34 Fairview in those next few hours?
That's
As
correct.
far as your husband or your brother-in-law, Brian, do you know where in the house they were when you were in the dining room?
Yes, they were in my bedroom.
Playing a little grab ass with each other.
Are you saying, taking you literally, that they grabbed each other's asses?
Yes.
And
She said it's all gonna end and it might as well be my fault.
You think I'm going to put Joe Flipperhead on this?
If she